The bell over the corner store door jingled as dawn crept across the quiet streets of Bayview, a working-class neighborhood wedged between the humming waterfront and the city's elevated train tracks. Inside, the scent of freshly ground coffee mingled with the sweet temps of ripe oranges stacked near the entrance. Behind the counter stood Ravi Patel, a 30-year-old immigrant from Gujarat, India. His dark hair, streaked with the first threads of gray, was tied back neatly. His eyes the brown held both tiredness and a quiet resolve. Each morning he unlocked Patel's market at 5:30 sharp. Rain or shine, a ritual that had become as steady as the rising sun. "Morning, Mr. Patel," called Mrs. Alvarez from across the street as she tugged her granddaughter toward school. "Good morning, Senora," Ravi replied with a warm nod. His accent was gentle, his English careful but fluent. Life in Bayview was far from easy. The neighborhood, once a bustling dockside hub, now bore the scars of economic decline. Boarded-up storefronts, flickering streetlights, whispers of petty crime after dark. Ravi kept his store bright and welcoming, a small oasis where locals could buy bread, milk, or a late-night snack without judgment. But behind his steady smile, Ravi carried quiet burdens. He sent part of every paycheck to his aging parents back home. He worried about the rising rent on the tiny apartment above the shop, where he lived with his younger sister Mira. And lately, there were rumors new city ordinances, unpredictable inspections, police officers making life harder for small immigrant businesses. Still, Ravi greeted each customer with the same unfailing courtesy. "Thank you. Come again," he would say. Even when the cash register barely balanced, even when he caught the occasional wary glance from strangers who still saw him as an outsider. That morning, as sunlight filtered through the dusty front windows, Mira descended the narrow staircase from their apartment, her hair pulled into a hurried bun. "You haven't eaten," she scolded softly, placing a small plate of paratha beside him. Ravi chuckled, "Customers first. I'll eat when the morning rush slows." He tried to keep his voice light, but Mira caught the flicker of worry in his eyes. A police cruiser idled briefly at the corner. Engine rumbling, Ravi watched it through the glass, the blue-white reflections sliding across the fruit display. Bayview's residents had grown used to occasional patrols, but lately the visits felt different, longer, colder, as if the officers were measuring something unseen. "New cop on the beat," a customer murmured, glancing toward the cruiser. "Doesn't smile much." Ravi only nodded, but the Fantanyasi stirred. He wiped his hands on a cloth and turned back to the register, unaware that this single morning would mark the beginning of something far more complicated than an inspection. Because behind the wheel of that patrol car sat Officer Mark Callahan, a man whose reputation for tough policing was whispered about in break rooms and back alleys. Callahan believed in control and showing strength before kindness. And today, for reasons even he couldn't fully name, his attention lingered on the little market at the corner of 5th and Bay. As the sun climbed higher, the city began to pulse with life train brakes. Screeching, vendors shouting, the bay wind carrying the scent of salt and diesel. Ravi rang up another customer, unaware that his quiet morning was about to fracture. What draws one man to suspicion and another to patience? What hidden ties can turn an act of harassment into a revelation? By nightfall, Ravi would no longer be just the polite shopkeeper everyone underestimated, and Officer Callahan would discover that the man he targeted was bound to him in a way neither could have imagined. The late afternoon heat settled heavy over Bayview as Ravi stacked a new crate of mangoes near the counter. The rhythmic clatter of the elevated train above barely registered. He'd grown used to its metallic heartbeat. The door swung open with a sudden force that rattled the bell. A tall officer stepped inside, uniform crisp, dark eyes scanning the shelves with the cold efficiency of someone looking for trouble. "Good evening, sir," Ravi said politely, smoothing his apron. The man didn't return the greeting. He paced slowly down the aisle, boots clicking against the worn linoleum. Finally, he stopped at the counter, hands resting on his utility belt. "Owner here?" he asked, voice clipped. "Yes," Ravi replied, steady but cautious. "I'm the owner, Ravi Patel." The officer's gaze narrowed. "Officer Mark Callahan, Bayview PD. Got a tip you're selling untaxed tobacco. Mind if I take a look around?" Ravi's stomach tightened. "Of course," officer. But I assure you we follow every regulation. All invoices are in the office. Callahan smirked, the expression carrying more challenge than amusement. We'll see about that. For the next 20 minutes, Callahan prowled through the aisles, opening boxers, rifling through shelves, even tugging open the small refrigerator. He handled items roughly, letting a carton of eggs tumble and crack onto the floor. Please, be careful, Ravi said, voice taut. Callahan glanced over his shoulder. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. Customers began to drift out, their eyes downcast. Mrs. Alvarez, who had stopped for bread, leaned toward Ravi and whispered, "This isn't right," before quietly leaving. When Callahan finally returned to the counter, his expression was hard. Store looks questionable. Questionable. I'll need to see your permits and tax records. They're in the office. I can fetch them, Ravi replied, forcing calm. Do it, Callahan said, folding his arms. And don't take too long. In the cramped office, Ravi's hands shook as he gathered the papers. Fear mixed with a slow, simmering disbelief that after years of hard work, he was being treated like a criminal. Mira slipped inside, eyes wide. What's happening? She whispered. He thinks we're breaking the law, Ravi said, voice low. But we're not. All the documents are clean. Mira's lips pressed into a thin line. He's intimidating you. I can call a lawyer. Ravi hesitated. Lawyers cost money they didn't have. Let's not escalate. Maybe if I cooperate, he'll leave. Back at the counter, Ravi handed over the neat stack of papers. Callahan flipped through them with deliberate slowness, his eyes gleaming with something Ravi couldn't name contempt. Perhaps, or a challenge waiting to be met. Looks. Fine, Callahan said at last. Then he leaned closer, his voice dropping. But I'll be back. Random checks. Bayview's had problems with shops like this. Ravi met his gaze. Shops like this, you know what I mean. Kayansai, straightening. Immigrant-run, places cutting corners. Happens all the time. The words hit like a slap. Ravi's jaw tightened, but he forced his voice to stay even. This market follows every rule. Please don't insult our work. Callahan smirked again, turning toward the door. Just keep it clean. Patel. We'll be watching. The bell jangled harshly as he left. Silence flooded the store after the cruiser's engine faded. Mira came to stand beside her brother. He can't do that, she said, trembling. He can't just barge in and humiliate you. Ravi rubbed his temples, exhaustion settling deep. He can. He's the police. That night, Ravi found it impossible to sleep. The words, shops, like this replayed in his mind, cutting sharper each time. He thought of his parents back in Gujarat, of their pride when he sent photos of the market. What would they say if they knew he was being treated like a suspect in the country he'd worked so hard to call home? The next day, Callahan returned. This time, he arrived during the busy evening rush. Customers froze as he strode in, hand resting on his holster. Another inspection, he announced loudly, as if to an unseen audience. Ravi swallowed hard. Officer, I gave you every document yesterday. Why again? Random checks. Callahan sighed. You've got a problem with that? Mira stepped forward, voice quivering but strong. This is harassment. You can't keep doing this without cause. Callahan's gaze cut to her. Ma'am, I can and I will, unless you'd like to file a complaint, see how far that gets you. Customers exchanged uneasy looks. A young man muttered, "This isn't right," but slipped out before Callahan noticed. Ravi's chest burned with a mix of shame and fury. He wanted to shout, to demand respect, but the badge on Callahan's chest felt like an unmovable wall. Instead, he said quietly, "We have nothing to hide, but you are frightening our customers." Callahan leaned close enough for only Ravi to hear. Then maybe you should consider how quickly a place like this can get shut down. When the officer finally left, the store felt smaller, the air heavier. Mira's eyes glistened with unshed tears. He's targeting us. she whispered. Ravi nodded, his voice thick. Because of who we are. Outside, the street lights flickered as night settled over Bayview. Ravi locked the door and turned the sign to closed. His reflection in the glass, a reminder of both his vulnerability and his quiet strength. Somewhere in the distance, the wail of a siren, a coda. Chilling reminder that the one meant to protect could just as easily destroy. And though Ravi didn't yet know it, the man harassing him carried a secret that would soon turn this relentless persecution into a revelation neither of them could have foreseen. Morning light spilled through the blinds of Patel's market, but it brought no comfort. Ravi Patel stood at the counter, rubbing the dark circles under his eyes. 2 nights of restless sleep had etched fatigue into every line of his face. Mira brewed tea behind the counter, her movements sharp with frustration. "We can't keep living like this. Bye," she said, her voice low but firm. "He'll keep coming back until we fight back." Ravi exhaled, staring at the quiet street outside. Fight back against a police officer. Who would believe us? "People will," Mira insisted. "We have customers who've seen him. Mrs. Alvarez, that college student who buys mangoes every weekday, no." Ravi wanted to believe her, but doubt clung to him like a second skin. He'd left India to escape corruption, to build a life on honest work. Now, the very authority meant to protect was the one tearing that life apart. That evening, Bayview's air buzzed with summer humidity and the smell of fried food from a nearby vendor. Ravi set up a discreet phone camera near the cash register, its tiny lens hidden between candy boxers. If Callahan returned, he'd have proof. Oars. Pasid, the camera, blinked silently. Near closing time, the door flew open. The bell's jangle felt like an alarm. Callahan entered, sunglasses reflecting the neon open sign. "Evening, Patel," he said, voice carrying an edge of mockery. "Any new shipments I should know about?" Ravi steadied his breathing. "Everything is documented. You can see the invoices if you wish." Callahan sauntered closer, scanning the shelves. "Funny thing, Patel. Got a call saying you're selling expired goods. Care to explain?" "That's impossible," Ravi replied quickly. "I check every date myself." "Then you won't mind if I look," Callahan said, already moving toward the dairy section. Ravi's heart hammered. He forced a calm he didn't feel. Let the camera see. Let the world see. After 10 tense minutes, Callahan returned to the counter, empty-handed but smirking. "Looks like you're clean for now, but remember, all it takes is one violation, one slip." He leaned in, voice a whisper. "This neighborhood can turn on you in an instant." Ravi felt the words like a cold knife. He said nothing, only watched as the officer left, the bells echo a taunt. Later that night, Ravi replayed the footage. The camera had caught Callahan's search, his sneer, but nothing overtly illegal. No proof of harassment beyond tone and attitude. Mira paced the small apartment upstairs. "It's something," she argued. "Enough to show a lawyer." Ravi shook his head. "It's not enough. They'll say he was doing his job." "What will you do then? Wait until he shuts us down?" Her voice cracked. Ravi closed the laptop, silence stretching between them. He hated the helplessness more than the fear. 2 days later, tension rose another notch. A letter arrived from the city. Notice of health inspection, immediate compliance required. Ravi read it twice, heart sinking. The timing was no coincidence. "This is him," Mira said, slamming the paper onto the counter. "He's behind it." The inspector arrived the next morning, tired-looking woman with a clipboard. She checked the refrigerators, the storage, the shelves. Everything was spotless. "You run a tight ship," she admitted, signing the form. "Honestly, I don't know why this was marked urgent." When she left, Mira muttered, "Because someone wants to scare us." Ravi nodded slowly. "He's trying to break us without leaving fingerprints." That night, a different kind of battle raged inside Ravi. Anger warred with caution, pride with fear. He thought of calling a lawyer, of filing a complaint, of confronting Callahan publicly, but the memory of the officer's cold smile, "all it takes is one violation," haunted him. He walked through the quiet aisles, the hum of the refrigerators. His only companion. This market was more than a business. It was his family's lifeline, their proof that they belonged here. Could he risk it all on a fight he might not win? A sudden knock shattered the stillness. Ravi opened the door to find Mrs. Alvarez, cheeks flushed from the night air. "I saw him," she said breathlessly. "That officer. He was parked across the street for over an hour, just watching." Ravi's stomach turned. "Are you sure?" "Positive. This isn't right, Ravi. You can't let him bully you." Her words sparked a small flame in the darkness. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. The next day, Ravi gathered a handful of loyal customers. Mrs. Alvarez, the college student, a delivery driver who often stopped for tea. They stood in the cramped market after hours, voices hushed but determined. "You've all seen it," Ravi said quietly. "The inspections, the intimidation. I need help. Witnesses." Mrs. Alvarez nodded fiercely. "We'll stand with you. This neighborhood knows what's happening." The college student added, "My phone can stream live if he shows up again. People need to see." For the first time in weeks, Ravi felt a flicker of hope. That night, he sat by the darkened window, watching the street. The city hummed Baludistan laughter, a passing train, the occasional bark of a stray dog. But every set of headlights made his chest tighten. How far will he go? Ravi wondered. And how long can I hold the line? He glanced at the photo of his parents on the counter, their smiles a reminder of the promise he'd made, to build a life of dignity, to never bow to injustice. Outside, a police cruiser rolled slowly past, its headlights sweeping across the glass like a silent challenge. Ravi gripped the edge of the counter, heart pounding. He would not back down, but he could not yet imagine the revelation waiting on the other side of this conflicted truth that would turn his fear into something far more complicated than victory. The summer night pressed heavy on Bayview, thick with the scent of rain and asphalt. Inside the darkened market, Ravi Patel sat behind the counter, every muscle tight. The small hidden camera above the register blinked like a silent witness. Mira dozed lightly on the stool beside him, a blanket over her shoulders. Headlights washed across the storefront. Ravi's chest tightened. The familiar blue and white cruiser slowed, then stopped. "Mira," he whispered, "wake up." She stirred, eyes wide as the door creaked open. The bell's jangle cut through the quiet like a blade. Officer Daniel Callahan stepped in, rain dripping from his cap, eyes sharp and cold. "Still open late, Patel," he said, voice dripping contempt. "Funny, I've had another tip. Expired goods again. Looks like you just can't keep this place clean." "We're closed," Ravi answered, keeping his voice even. "You should leave." Callahan smirked and advanced, boots squeaking on the linoleum. "I have my badge. That's reason enough to be here." Mira rose. "There's nothing wrong here. You know that." Callahan's gaze flicked to her, cold and assessing. "Car full. Interfering with a city inspection carries consequences." Ravi stepped between them. "This is harassment, officer. You have no warrant." The officer's smile thinned. "People like you think hard work erases where you came from. You don't belong here." The words struck deeper than any shove. Mira's voice shook. "You don't get to decide who belongs." Callahan ignored her, yanking boxers from shelves, sending cans clattering to the floor. The hidden camera caught every shove. Ravi's fists clenched, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Let the world see. You think an audience changes the law." Callahan sneered. "It changes everything," Ravi replied, pulling out his phone and hitting record. "Smile for the camera, officer." For the first time, Callahan faltered. A sudden gust of wind blew the door wide. Mrs. Alvarez hurried in, phone held high and recording. Behind her came the college student. Then 2 more neighbors, each with their cameras. "We saw his car," Mrs. Alvarez announced. "The whole block knows what's happening." Callahan stiffened. "You all think a crowd will stop me?" "It already has," Mira said, her voice clear and steady. Lightning flashed, then another voice soft. uncertain cut through the storm. "Dad?" Everyone turned. A young woman stood in the doorway, rain plastering her hair to a crisp police cadet uniform. She couldn't have been more than 20. "Dad, what are you doing?" she asked, confusion and hurt mingling in her eyes. Callahan's jaw tightened. "Lena, go home. This isn't your concern." But she stepped closer. "I heard the scanner. Off-duty officer at a market after hours." "People are already talking." Ravi blinked. "His daughter." "Dad!" Lena pressed. "Tell me you're not." "This is nothing," Callahan snapped. "Just a routine check." "No," she said firmly. "This looks like harassment." The room fell silent except for the rain. Ravi found his voice. "Your father has threatened us for weeks," he said quietly. Lena turned to him, then back to her father. "Is that true?" Callahan's shoulders sagged. "You don't understand," he said hoarsely. "I was protecting the neighborhood. People like—" He stopped, the words dying on his tongue. "Protecting it from what?" "From people like Mom?" The revelation landed like a thunderclap. Callahan's head snapped toward her. "Lena," he warned, but his voice cracked. "You never told them?" she whispered. "You never told anyone." Her voice trembled. "Mom was an immigrant. Grandma told me after she died. She came here from Mexico and worked 3 jobs to survive. You built your life with her dad. How can you stand here and hate where you are?" The market seemed to shrink around them. Callahan's face crumpled, the mask of authority peeling away. He looked at Ravi, at Mira, at the neighbors, with their cameras still rolling. I lost her," he murmured. "Every day I see this city changing. I thought if I controlled it, if I stopped more change, maybe I wouldn't lose everything else." Lena stepped closer, tears in her eyes. "Control isn't justice, and hate won't bring Mom back." The officer staggered back a step, the storm outside echoing the storm inside him. Mrs. Alvarez spoke softly. "It's not too late to do the right thing." Callahan's gaze darted between them, then dropped to the badge on his chest. He pulled his radio from his belt, fingers trembling. "Dispatch," he said, voice rough but steady. "This is Officer Callahan. I need to report misconduct my own." The room exhaled as if it had been holding a collective breath. Outside, sirens approached, but not with menace. Fellow officers arrived to take his statement. Callahan handed over his badge without a fight, his shoulders slumping under years of hidden weight. Lena stayed close, not in defense, but quiet solidarity. Ravi felt his own anger soften, replaced by something complicated: relief, pity, even respect for the painful truth laid bare. Mira slipped her hand into his, and he realized his eyes burned. The storm outside began to ease, rain softening to a mist. The neon sign flickered back to life, casting a gentle glow across the market that had endured every attempt to break it. Justice had not come in the way Ravi expected, but it had come all the same, and in that quiet, he knew this night would change them all. Morning light spilled across Bayview Market, soft and golden after the long night of storm and revelation. The familiar neon sign hummed again, but the atmosphere inside felt entirely new, lighter, as though a heavy curtain had finally been pulled aside. Ravi Patel stood by the front window, sipping tea that Mira had brewed before dawn. For the first time in weeks, his hands didn't tremble. Outside, neighbors paused on their way to work, offering small smiles and waves. Yesterday they might have hurried past, afraid of police presence or late-night drama. Today they lingered, as if to say, "We saw. We stand with you." Behind him, the door creaked open. Lena Callahan stepped inside, her cadet jacket neatly pressed despite the sleepless night. She carried no camera, no badge only. A quiet resolve. "Mr. Patel," she said, her voice steady but gentle. "My father asked me to come." He's turned in his statement. "Internal Affairs has already started an investigation." Ravi nodded, meeting her gaze. "Thank you. That can't have been easy for either of you." Lena exhaled, a faint tremor betraying the weight she carried. "It wasn't." But it was right. He'll face the consequences, and he knows it. She hesitated, then added, "He also asked me to apologize, not as an officer's daughter, just as his." The words settled warmly, not as a pardon, but as a bridge. "You don't owe me that," Ravi said softly, "but I accept it for him, and for you." Mira emerged from the storeroom, wiping her hands on an apron. "Would you like some chai?" "It's fresh," she offered. Lena smiled, a flicker of relief in her tired eyes. "I'd like that." As the day unfolded, more neighbors came. Mrs. Alvarez brought sweetbread. The college student returned with printed screenshots from the live stream, promising to share them with city council. Each visitor carried a piece of the night's truth, weaving it into the fabric of the community. Ravi felt a quiet awe. For weeks, he had believed he was alone, a single shopkeeper facing a system too powerful to challenge. Yet when the darkness peaked, people had shown up Kamar's ready, hearts unafraid. Later that afternoon, a local reporter arrived to interview him. The story, now public, was no longer about one corrupt officer. It was about resilience, accountability, and the unexpected unity of a neighborhood. "Do you feel justice has been served?" the reporter asked. Ravi considered the question. "Justice isn't only about punishment," he said slowly. "It's about truth." Last night, the truth stood in the open. Everyone saw it. That's a beginning. Evening came washing the streets in amber light. The market closed early, and Ravi walked outside with Mira to breathe the cool air. Across the street, children played under a sky scrubbed clean by rain. Mira slipped her hand into his. "You look lighter," she said. "I am," he replied. "Not because everything is fixed, but because I'm not carrying it alone anymore." He thought of Callahan, once the embodiment of intimidation, now a man stripped of armor, confronting his own buried past. There was tragedy in that, but also a glimmer of hope. If a man so hardened could face his truth, perhaps change was possible anywhere. Narrator, voiceover. In a city where power once silenced the powerless, a small market became the stage for something greater than revenge. It became proof that community can outshine fear, that truth can pierce even the darkest uniform, and that bloodlines run deeper than prejudice. Ravi Patel did not win by force. He won by holding fast to integrity when it would have been easier to bend. Officer Callahan did not escape consequence, but in confessing, he found the first step toward redemption. And the neighborhood, once fractured by suspicion, discovered its own quiet strength. Let this night remind us all. Justice is not a thunderclap. It is a series of voices refusing to be silenced. And sometimes, the bravest act is simply to keep the light on until the dawn proves that darkness cannot last forever.